Mafia III. What can I say about the 2016 game that was set to be the return of the much beloved franchise? Mafia 3 was sold to us as a completely new and upgraded, highly polished entry into the iconic crime based series spanning over 25 years. If you're not a fan of crime related RPGs, then you may have never even heard of the Mafia series. So let's take a quick look at the series before we deep dive into Mafia 3. The Mafia games were first released back in 2002, oh so long ago. They're always set in fictional areas that look like classic American cities, like the Depression era Lost Haven, which looks like Chicago and New York, or New Bordeaux, which in Mafia 3 that looks like New Orleans. And although they're more linear than like a GTA games, or I'm thinking it's Streets of New York and Streets of LA that I'm thinking about, I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, the gameplay still centers on open world where the players can perform missions to advance the main plot as well as partake in different side activities, you know, general open world stuff, even though, like I said, it's more linear. A majority of the games have added a free ride mode that enables users to start missions in the open environment, and each game concentrates on a different individual who, in one way or another, gets dragged into the mafia either by trying to advance through its levels or bring it down for wrongdoing, or some way they are pulled into the mafia lifestyle. Typically, the villains are characters who have betrayed the protagonist or their organization, or who have been the biggest impact on their achievement and have turned on them, you know? There's a lot of backstabbing in games about Mafia. Who would have thunk? Now that you know the basics of Mafia, let's get into Hangar 13's Mafia. Yeah, Hangar 13's Mafia 3. This is a tough game to cover because I was very hyped for it. I pre-ordered it and stayed up that day to play it day one because I had to leave for a Thanksgiving trip the next day. And if you say yes, Canadian Thanksgiving is at a different time than US Thanksgiving. That's why. Anyway, I watched all the lead up videos. I watched the coverage at E3. I was very impressed with the brutality and beauty I saw in the game. But I was so underwhelmed that when I got to the end, that I never played the 4 DLCs that came out after it. Part of me wants to go back and replay this game, but I honestly don't know if I can. I can put myself through a lot for a video game, but I don't know if I could go back and play this. Mafia 3 is set in the fictional city of New Bordeaux in 1968, and the story follows the former criminal and Vietnam War veteran Lincoln Clay, who is forced to return to a life of crime to help his adopted family settle some problems with the local branch of the mafia. Remember what we talked about at the start, where somehow they're forced into the mafia life or forced back into a life of crime? Here we go. Now, after they've settled their debt, the mafia betrays them and murders his family, and Lincoln embarks on a quest for revenge while slowly building a criminal empire and seizing the power of the other criminal organizations within the city. It's a true revenge at all costs kind of story. You have to deal with racism, colorism, sexism, all during the chaotic time that was the United States in turmoil during the Vietnam War. I will give the game points for its original soundtrack. See, I like the music from that era. Some people might not, but it was era appropriate in so many ways, and it really brought you back to that time and the environment that was presented to you at that time. There are also three endings for this game. I'm going to assume that the DLC retcons at least one of those endings, Resident Evil style. But the endings are very different, and it really is, at least for me, it felt like it wasn't until the last few missions that you get a sense that there could be more than one ending. The whole story is about getting revenge at all costs against all odds. You can either turn into the good guy that you should be, you can leave it all behind, or you can become the person, you know, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain kind of situation. Logically, I know there has to be more than one ending. Games like these usually do, but it didn't feel like it was in your face or intrusive and all that. And me being me, I played it to the fullest before, which means I got almost 100% before I rolled into the last mission, so I only saw one ending, and that was the ending I wanted, so I have no desire to go back and try a different ending, like some people would. I can say the same for Mass Effect. No matter the decisions I make, there's only certain missions that I will do that I know will affect the outcome because it's the outcome I want and all that. See, we now have the benefit of hindsight that Mafia 3 failed to live up to its name no matter how amazing the team behind it was. Mafia 3 has also gone on to be one of the lowest rated games in the series, with people praising the story and character developments of Lincoln but condemning the stale and basic combat, repetitive gameplay, and an open world that felt too big, yet too small and empty in some places. I think the only few games that I can say have a open world that is worth it is Yakuza and Persona, and like the earlier Assassin's Creeds. Maybe that's a hot take, but they felt like especially Yakuza, there's so much to do and so much to discover within those games that having the open world makes sense, but the open world is also small, so you're not just wandering around wasting your time, no matter the area you're in or the Yakuza game you're in. But anyway, I digress. A lot of games have sold themselves on the bigness of the map, and contrary to what I always say, bigger is not always better. That's what she said. So to this day, on PC, at least that's where I played it and where I read a lot of more of the recent reviews, the game still struggles. Not to mention it's frame rate locked, even if it says it might not be. Some people have found that it still is. It might depend on some people's configurations, because as we know, PC gaming, there's thousands of configurations out there that it's impossible to make it for every system. But frame rate seems to be locked for a fair few. 4K seems just to run havoc on some new systems, and it's some people just can't play it in 4K. And I don't get that, because this is not a Microsoft Flight Simulator, so I'm very confused as to why this game is so tough on some computers. That doesn't count a lot of the general graphical issues and audio issues in the game itself that often led to crashes or soft locks, even, like I said, till this very day. I played this back in 2016, day one, before the day one patch even came out, because I pre-ordered it, so I got early access, blah, 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 blah. And it quickly became apparent that I and probably a lot of other people slogged through this game to find out what was going to happen to Lincoln and his friends, and the city, and the people you either helped or damned. We all have that game that you're so far into it that you're like, I can't stop now. I might as well finish it. Dishonored 2 for me comes to mind, because I really did enjoy that game, but once I got to the last part, which was the witches part, which was probably the coolest part of all the game, I'm like, I need this game to be over. I need it to stop. And that's kind of what I felt with this back in the day. Now, as much as I've been ripping into it, I did have fun with Mafia 3. Like I said, I enjoyed the story it told. I thought the story was banging. I enjoyed the care and time and craft they put into it. And if you want to play this game, honestly, get it at a heavy discount and get the complete edition, or the definitive edition, I think it's called. It comes with all the DLCs, all the new patches, all that stuff. The story is decent and it has a lot to it, but it's just trapped in repetitive cycles. And while it's very similar to a lot of games I like to play, like Assassin's Creed or Death Stranding, it just lacks something. I don't know what it is. It's hard to describe unless you sit and play this game, and I don't know if I want to call it lacking soul, because that seems really harsh to say, because the city is detailed, there's care crafted into it, but something is missing, and I can't put my finger on it. But if you've played this game, let me know if you think that as well. So as of August of 2022, a new Mafia game has been announced to be in production by the very same team that brought us Mafia 3. I'm wishing them all the best, because aside from the overarching technical issues with Mafia, it really did have time, care, and love crafted into it. The team went to New Orleans to research stuff, they looked through history archives, they did a whole bunch of stuff to make sure that this was as believable as a world as it could have possibly been. And I think they did a great job. And with the technology upgrades since 2016, I'm looking forward to what can be done. If some of the recent remakes like Dead Space, the Resident Evil games, are anything to go by. I think this won't be a remake. It's going to be a brand new game, but I'm saying the definitive edition, let's even look at the definitive edition Mafia remakes. This new game is going to look so good. It's going to play so good, and I am willing to give it another chance. And I'm willing to give Hangar 13 another chance. But I think Mafia was a victim of its own success, and it just was another open world game that felt hollow. But those are just my thoughts and opinions. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Let me know what you want me to cover next. It could be a game, it could be a studio, it could be anything, but just let me know in the comment section below. And I love each and every single one of you. Thank you for listening to my ramblings, and 2023 is going to be a fun year for us, okay? I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.